Hi everyone! Welcome to today's Paws brush party. My name's Becky and I'm so looking forward to this one. It's a really fun one to do and I cannot wait to see all your fantastic pandas. So what we're going to do is we're going to start getting all of our equipment ready. So it might be worth just grabbing a jar of water or a pot of water just to keep our paintbrushes nice and clean. Oh, hi Jake! And hello Peanut Butter? I'm not sure of your name, but I'm sure it's not peanut butter. But hi anyway. I do love peanut butter, not gonna lie. Especially on toast. That is always a winner. So we'll go through all of the colours that we're going to be using for this painting. And as always, with any brush party painting you do, you're more than welcome to change the colours completely. So I'm just going to be using all of the primary colours, which means I'm going to be using yellow, blue, and a little bit of red, black, and white. But obviously there's a lot of green in this, so if you want to use just a ready mixed green, that's totally fine. That will save you a lot of mixing. But I'm just going to be mixing blue and yellow for my greens. So I'm going to start with popping a little bit of white. We're going to use quite a lot of this white, so it might be worth doing about 2 blobs of white on your palettes or on your plates, whatever you're using. Just so you've got one for the background, and then you've got a nice clean, fresh white that's not going to have any green in it for the panda. So one thing with this painting is that obviously the panda's white for quite a lot of it. So once you're in the background, we're going to do a lot of wafting and a lot of drying. But if you do have a hairdryer at home, definitely recommend getting a hairdryer for this one, especially if you want to keep up live. Oh, hi Camilla. Hello. Yeah, if you want to keep up live, definitely get a hairbrush. Or another tip is to not load up the paint too thick. So it just means that when we're adding the paint to the canvas, we want plenty of water with it so that it's got more time to dry. If you use just a lot of paint by itself, it's going to take quite a long time to dry. But it's fine because we do have that pause button. So you're more than welcome to pause this video as many times as you need to. So you can take it in your own time and really just, spend as much time on your panda as you want to. Oh, hi Anna. Fantastic. Looking forward to seeing your panda, Anna. And if you are doing a different colour, maybe you want to do like a pink panda or I don't know, like lots of other things in the background, let me know. So we've got a lot of people already commenting that live chat feature, which is great. So it's a really good way to stay in contact. Red, that's what I'm missing. Throughout the painting. So if at any point you're a bit confused or something, or it's not going quite right, then just pop a little comment and it'll come through to me live and I'll be able to help you out as much as I can. So I'll just show you my palette as to what I've got so far. The blue just sort of exploded on me. So I've got a massive blob of blue, yellow, 2 lots of white, black, and then we only need a little bit of red for this one. Just for the paws and his mouth. Now, we did have a really good question throughout the week from somebody called Rex, if you're watching. Hi, Rex. Who asked where the panda's paws are. It's called panda paws, isn't it? We need to know where his hands are. They're right here, right at the bottom. So just to clear up any confusion, they're right in between his legs, just sort of like sat in that sort of position. But yeah, I just thought I'd put that in there just in case anybody else was wondering, because they are kind of hidden, aren't they? So yeah, that's my palette one more time. But yeah, like I said, put any colour you want. You can put pink, you can put purples, you can put the green on there, you can put loads of other colours. So that is all you need for the basics. Then the other things that we need for painting is some brushes. Always very, very handy when it comes to painting. So you only really need 2 brushes for this one. You can actually do the whole background with a big brush. So you can either have a flat brush where all the bristles are in a line at the top, or you might have a diagonal brush like me. You mostly just want a brush that's wider because there's a lot of background to fill and we want nice big thick brush strokes. So you'll be here all day if you use one of these smaller brushes for your background. So something that's big and bold will be great for the background. And then the only other brush that you really do need is a small brush. So I've got my cropped brush and a pointy brush just so I can show you guys the 2 different ways to use the brushes. But the only bit we're going to use the small brushes for is for these really small details. So it might be easier with a little pointy brush to get the little dots in and for the eyes and things. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to go through all of these brushes so that if you've got slightly different versions of each one at home, you can kind of take my instruction and then do what you need to do with your own brushes. So hopefully that will be helpful. But yeah, any brush will be absolutely fine. Might be worth grabbing an apron or an old t-shirt, and we also need a bit of kitchen roll or a napkin or something just to keep our paints nice and clean, so that they're nice and crisp and bright. Because if you don't have a paper towel, it sometimes just gets a bit clogged up on the brush. So always good to have that. And that is pretty much everything. So yeah, like I said, I sort of started about the live chat feature and then forgot what I was talking about. Oh, hi, Ivy and Granny. Hello. Hi. So to be able to use that live chat feature, you'll need to be logged into a Google account or a YouTube account, so a Gmail or just a YouTube account. But if you don't have those and you need to comment if something's not going quite right, then just send us a message on Facebook or by email. I won't get the email straight away, but I'll get your Facebook messages straight away. So yeah, that's just the other options if you don't have that available. So one thing that I do ask is that you enjoy yourselves and you take lots of photos. So if you do have your mobile phone on you, every so often, I'm going to remind you lots, don't worry, but every so often, once you've done like a step, when you've done the background, next layer, just keep taking photos and keep them all till the end, and you'll be able to look back and see all the lovely steps that you've gone through to get the final panda painting. So yeah, you can share them with us at the end, and I'll go through how you can share your paintings with us and all that sort of stuff right at the end of the event. So when you are ready, let's get started. So we're going to start with our big brush, this one right here, and we're going to start by dipping it in the water. So like I said, we're going to make the paint just a little bit watery so that it's not going to take hours to dry. So when you're getting your brush in the water, I'm going to swirl it around so you're getting all the bristles nice and wet. So all the way down to the bottom of the cup or jar, swivel it around. And then without drying the brush, we're going to go straight in to some yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some yellow, move it to a clean part of the palette so I'm being able to mix that water around into the yellow. If you've got green, then you might want to mix the yellow and the green together to get a slightly lighter green. I don't have green here, so I'm just going to be mixing my yellow into some of my blue. So you're more than welcome to do exactly the same as me, or you can do your own version of the green. It's totally up to you, it's your background. But we are going to start quite light. So I'm going to mix up quite a lot of this colour because we've got a lot of background to fill. So I'm picking up quite a bit of paint. And like I said, we're going to add lots and lots of water. So if it starts to go a little bit sticky when you start adding more paint, you might want to just add a few more brush loads of water. So go from the water, drip it into the paint, mix it round. Very important. You don't want to forget to mix it. And because this is like a bright lime green, I'm going to tone it down by adding in some of my white. So just a little bit of white, just to make it a bit more of a slightly chalky colour, so it's not so fluorescent, so bright. So we have something a little bit like this. If you can see that okay on the camera, that would be great. There we go. Just don't want to tip my paint all over the camera because that wouldn't be very good, would it? So I'm going to pick up quite a lot of this on the brush, and when we're doing our background, we need to hold our brush flat ways. So all the bristles are horizontal, which means they're going in a line this way. And we're going to be doing big, long brush strokes going up and down. And I actually think that's still very, very limey. So I might pop a little bit more white into that. A little bit of blue. There we go. It's a slightly nicer green. So yeah, we're basically just covering the whole of the background with big, long brush strokes going up and down. And we're not going to worry about it being too smooth or perfect because it kind of looks like bamboo right in the distance. So once you've got the paint on there, you're just pushing the brush up and down, being quite messy with it, and then just move your brush across your canvas. And it's also quite good to paint your edges as well. So while we've got that colour on the brush, I'm going to very carefully turn it around without dropping it. then we're going to paint down those edges as well, because hopefully these will end up on your walls at home, on display, and you want to look nice and professional. So it's always good to have those edges completed. There we go, much better. I would probably leave the bottom edge for now, just like one edge free, if you're painting upright, because you don't want it to end up getting stuck to your tables or anything, or whatever you're painting on. So I'm going to add plenty of water again. As soon as the paint starts to go a bit sticky, like as you're adding in more paint, it might just need a bit more water to dry out a bit quicker. Because the thinner the paint is, the more likely it's going to dry nice and quick. So if you would like to take your time, like I said at the beginning, you can pause the video as much as you need to. So if you just click on the video, it should just pause it. And we also have the little bar at the bottom of the screen, which you can slide backwards and forwards as well. So if there's any bits that maybe like when I stop and I'm just sort of like talking for hours at you, you can fast forward through those bits as well and sort of carry on from the painting again. So pause it and you can fast forward again and catch up live and just go at your own pace, really. So you can literally spend all day doing this painting if you wanted to. There's no rush with this. And the link will be available for about 24 hours. So you've got until tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening to paint this lovely painting. So yeah, if you feel like you want to add to it, then you could always come back and watch the video and just use the paint tips to add other things and all that sort of stuff. You could even add like 2 pandas or 3. I don't know, depends how adventurous you're feeling. I think 2 pandas could look cute. They could be sitting next to each other, couldn't they? I'll leave that with you guys. So every now and then my paint starts to go very, very sticky and it pretty much runs out as well. So I'm kind of adding all those 3 colours again, just topping it up every couple of brush strokes to make sure that I've got enough on there that's going to actually cover the canvas. And it's probably going to change very slightly as you mix up more paint. As you can see, it's kind of got a bit lighter in some places where I've just been not mixing it perfectly. There we go, it's gone back dark again. But that's fine, it's quite nice to have a mix of different greens. So don't spend too long trying to get the exact same shade as what you had before. And make sure you get right down to the bottom and all the way up to the top as well. And keep adding that water. I know I'm saying it a lot, but it really, really helps with the drying process. Definitely. But yeah, if you do have a hairdryer, so amazingly helpful they are. Always use my hairdryer when I'm painting. So as you're getting towards the end of your backgrounds, you might start to see some little white specks that start to show up in your backgrounds. And you might have to look a bit closer to see those. But if you do start seeing those pop up, it just means that there might not quite be enough paint on that part of the canvas. So it might be worth, once you've done the background, just going back through with a slightly closer look and just making sure that every single little patch is completely covered, because you don't want any gaps. Although we have got lots of layers for this, so the gaps are probably going to get covered up. But I always like to just make sure that each layer is as perfect as possible before going on to the next one. Okay, last little patch now. And as you can see, it's quite stripy, so I've not really gone back over anything to make it too neat. I'm just whacking it on and moving on. So I'm not spending too long on this bit. You want to save plenty of time for your panda, because that's the main thing in this painting, believe it or not, is the panda. So we want to make sure we've got loads and loads of time to go through it nice and slowly. Okay, let's take a closer look and see if there's any white patches. I can see quite a lot of them. So let's just take a couple of seconds to go back through. Make sure everything's perfect. Don't forget about the top of your canvas as well. You want to make sure that's nice and painted. You might want to do a completely different colour for your edges if you want to. So you could do a really, really dark green, or you could even do blue, maybe black or yellow, whatever colour you choose to do is going to look lovely because it's kind of like a border around your painting. So I've done this one slightly darker on top. Might go even darker, just to really push the boat out. Let's do it. So you can see what kind of effect it has. One thing with the background though is if you are doing a different colour, be really careful that you don't accidentally paint the front of your canvas as well, because you'll end up having to go back over with your old colour and try and get it to work. There we go, so that's a slightly different colour. Adds a nice little effect, especially when it's up on your wall. But yeah, that's the first step done. Easy peasy. So rinse off your big brush in your water and make sure all that green is out of it, because we want to make sure it's nice and free of paint, ready for the next step. So, like I said, take a step back from your painting and take a photo. That's your first step done. If you've got quite a lot of paint on your background and you might not have used enough water, then a really good way to dry it, if you've not got a hairdryer, is just to hold around the back of your painting. So if you're using a canvas, you might want to hold around the back of the edges, around the wooden bit. I know we've just painted the sides, so be very careful about it going on your clothes. And then you gently just waft it. So it's a really good way to get your canvases dry. If you've got some music on, stand up and really get into the wafting, because it makes it dry much quicker. If I had music on, I would be up dancing around, but I don't have music on, so I'm not going to get up and dance around because I'd look a bit silly. So keep wafting until it is nice and dry. So a really good way to test that it's dry is just to give it a little tap. And if it comes off on your fingers, then it's still wet. So you might need to waft a little bit more. Mine's still quite wet, so I'm just going to waft it for a little bit longer. So I'm hoping you're all good with your backgrounds so far. If you've got any questions, give me a shout. Just pop a little comment in the live chat feature. But the next bit that we're going to do is add in all of the bamboo. So it's the same sort of brush strokes that we've just been doing, but we're going to be using a slightly darker green. So there's two layers to our bamboo. So we've got these slightly lighter ones that are a bit smaller in the background. And then we've got some darker ones that are kind of framing our panda. So we'll start with the light. Then we'll do the darker ones. Then we'll add all the leaves and then all the white bits. And then it's the panda. So yeah. Oh, I'm going to put these lights on because I realised I haven't got my extra lights on. There we go. A little bit brighter for you guys. So hopefully they're a bit more dry. Now, if you've still got a really wet background, then just pause it and take your time. There's no rush. Maybe grab another drink or whatever. Grab some lunch. And then, yeah, rinse off your brushes. Make sure they're nice and clean. And if you need to top up any of your paints, if you've maybe used up all your yellow or your green, then just pop a bit more paint on your palettes ready for the next little bit. So, into the colour that we've just been using, I've kind of already made mine a little bit darker when I did the top edge. So I've kind of already got the next colour, but I'm going to show you anyway. So into the last colour, all we're going to do is pop a little bit more blue into it. So if you're just using yellow and green, if you've got that already mixed green, feel free to just pop a bit more green into it. So either of your dark colours, I'm just popping a little bit more. So it just takes it to a slightly darker green than what's on our background. So I'm just popping a little bit more blue. And I'll just show you. It's probably not going to come out perfect straight away. So what we can do is do a couple of tester brush strokes, see what it looks like, and then we can make up a bit more of the paint if we need to. So these ones are the ones that are in the background. So what I would do with your brush is hold it flat like we've been doing for the background. And if you hold the brush quite far back, it feels really strange. It feels like you've not got any control on the brush, but it's a really good way to get this nice swooping brush stroke. So I'm going to start on the right hand side because we've got that nice, oh, that's my elbow. I'm going to start with this really light one over here on the right. Then we're going to move our way across and just add these ones in the background. So I've got 1, kind of 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put 5 of these lighter ones in. So we've got a little bit of paint on the brush. I've wiped it on the side of the plate, on the palette. So I've got a nice even amount of paint on both sides of the brush. Just painting everything. Whoops. Everything but the canvas at the minute. So we're going to start at the top of our painting, over on the right-hand side. I'm going to leave a very, very small gap from the right, so it's not sitting exactly on the side. It's just slightly in from the edge. That's probably going to be an okay colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. So if I bring this a bit closer, you can kind of see that the paint's got a bit fuzzy in some places, and that's fine. All we need to do is go back over it, starting from the bottom. So start from the bottom, go back over the line with a bit more paint, and just go nice and slowly all the way up to the top. You might need to do it a couple of times to make sure you've got a nice even coverage. I think mine's looking a little bit dark. Let's pop a bit more yellow back in. Okay, so the first one is our tester. So if you think the colour needs to change a little bit, it needs to be lighter or darker, then now is a good time to add to your colour. I think I'm going to leave that as it is, I think. So the next one, we're going to slightly bend it a little bit. So have a little picture in your mind of where you want this to go. It might be a good idea to do a little marker at the top, so a little dash. Let's do a little dash up here, and a little dash at the bottom, so you kind of know where you're going to start your brushstroke and where you're going to end it. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing as before, where I'm starting at the top, but this one's going to have a slight bend in it. And we're just adding in a couple of streaky lines, adding in some bamboo in the background. And I'm not being too precise with it because these are the ones in the background. They're quite far in the distance. I'm not worrying about each line being exactly perfect. So if it goes a little bit fuzzy on the sides, it's fine. Go over it a couple of times just to make sure it's got a little bit of paint on it. But I wouldn't work into it too much because we're pretty much going to cover these over later. So that's my first two. The next couple of ones, I'm going to do them a little bit thinner. So rather than using the brush flat like we've been using it, we're actually going to turn it lengthways, so vertically. So this time all the bristles are going in a line downwards. So if you've got a brush like mine, where you've got long bristles on one side and short bristles on the other, then you want your long bristles pointing up. And that's really important when it comes to this brush, because if you have it the other way around, it just bunches up and it doesn't really give the nicest brush stroke. So long bristles pointing up. I'll bring this a bit closer so you can see. And I like this little mark that I've got going on here. So I'm going to go a little bit over this way. And I've got my long bristles pointing up, and I'm just going to drag it down all the way to the bottom. So this one's just a little bit thinner than my other ones. Can you see the difference between this one and that one? This one's a lot thicker. This one's a lot thinner. There we go. So I said I was going to do 5. So I'm going to try and squeeze 2 more over on this side. So you can choose to do your brush strokes widthways, where you get thick ones, or lengthways, where you get thinner ones. So it's totally up to you for the last 2. Well, it's up to you for all of them, really. I'm just giving you an idea. So I'm going to do 2 more. I'm going to do one more skinny little one this way. Not sure if you can see that. Go over it a couple more times so you can see it a bit clearer. And then I'm going to do one slightly thicker one right on the edge to finish off. Definitely need a bit more paint on that one. There we go. So those are the ones in the background. They're not really going to show up too much later on, but they're always quite nice just to have the ones in the background. So if you think you've got loads and loads and loads of gaps, what you can do is take off quite a lot of paint off the brush, so just give it a good scrape on the side of your palette. And in a couple of places, just do some messy brush strokes, just going downwards. So they're not really going to the top and they're not really going to the bottom. They're kind of just in the gaps. So you can do those with a flat brush, or you can do it with your brush vertically. So I'm going to do a couple vertical brush strokes and a couple of those ones. So they're just ones that are even less defined. Just making the background a bit more stripy. Really good to fill in the gaps. Okay, so that is the second step. Whee! The next step is to add in our darker ones. So these ones here. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 dark ones. I had to really count them to work out which one was which. So this one actually has a little bit of black. And I always get a bit worried about saying about putting black into the colours because it makes such a huge difference to the colour without using a little bit, well, with only using a little bit of black. So you only need the tiniest little dot of black into your colour to make it really dark. So I'd be super careful with this next step. So into the colour that we've just been using, all that green that we've just used for those background bits of bamboo, I'm just making a bit more of that last colour. And these next ones, we're just going to add the tiniest little dot. I mean, that might even be too much. So I've got that much black and I'm going to pop it into that green. Okay, so it's just making it a little bit darker without going too blue. Might do a little bit more. I would say it's better to do lots of little dots of black rather than one big blob of black because it's really hard to measure how dark is actually going to make it. So yeah, if you want to, well, if you feel like you've gone too dark already, if you've maybe added a bit too much black, that's fine. What I would do is just start on a new bit of the palette on a clean space and just start from the beginning with the colours. So yellow, blue or green, and then a little bit of black as well. And that is all you need for that next colour. I'm going to put a little bit more of it in there because I need quite a lot of this. So this time, you kind of want the paint to be a little bit thicker. So you want to pick up a little bit more paint on the brush. And rather than scraping it on the side like we did last time, we're just going to leave it quite thick on the brush. Okay, so these ones we are going to plan a bit more because they're going to really stand out. And I think I've put this one kind of where I want my darker one. I might put my dark one there instead now. So I'm just having a little conversation with myself. So the first one we're going to do, I'm going to do this one first. No, I'm going to do this one. Just ignore me. We're going to do this one over here. So the one right on the left-hand side, because that one is just behind this big one. Are you still with me? That's very confusing. Right, all we're going to do is we're going to do a little dot at the top of our canvas on the left-hand side, just in this top corner somewhere. So I've got a light one right there, so I'm going to go next to that one. So this colour is quite a bit darker, so that we can really see that these ones are closer towards us, so the darker ones. So that's our marker at the top, and then I'm going to do a little marker at the bottom, a bit further along. So this one's going to have a very slight bend, kind of the same sort of thing that we did for this one over here. So hold your brush flat ways, so horizontally, where all the bristles are going in a line across. And I'm going to start from the top and then very, very slowly just drag it down all the way to our dot at the bottom. And then start from the bottom and then go upwards. So it's got plenty of time to get the paint on there and even out there. So these ones, they do need to be a little bit crisper on the side. So if you want to make them really crisp, what you can do is go down the side of your bamboo with a vertical brush. So you know the really small ones that we did, these thin ones, you can do exactly the same brush stroke, but just right next to your thick line. And all that does is makes the paint line up nice and crisp on the side, which looks really, really nice on the painting. So just make sure you don't have any gaps there like that one. Let's fill that in. Okay, and we can do the same thing going down the other side. So it might make it a little bit thicker, but that's totally fine. My next one is going to be this one here. So this one is kind of doing like a little arch above our panda. It's kind of framing it a little bit. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing as before. We start with a dot at the top and a dot at the bottom, and then we just join it together. So nothing new. So hopefully it's getting easier and easier with every single brush stroke. If you're finding it a bit tricky, don't panic. Just take your time with it and do whatever brush stroke you find easiest. So don't worry too much about doing it exactly the same as me, because they're all going to look a little bit different. So just do whatever feels best. Okay. And don't forget to pause it as much as you need to. There's no race at all. There's no rush to keep up with me. I'm just going to do it hopefully within about an hour and a half. That's the sort of time frame, but it might take you a bit longer, and that's totally fine. So use that pause button as much as you need to. It's really, really handy. So the next one is this big one. So I'm going to go, are you ready for some measurements? We're going to go a third of the way across the top. So how to find a third is a little bit tricky, but what we need to do is look at our canvas and picture it in 3 even sections. So I always like to use my hands when it comes to measuring. So third just means 3 sections. So what I'm going to do is pop them like this. And can you see, hopefully kind of, 3 sections. We've got one on this side, one in the middle, and one on that side as well. And they kind of look about the same size. And that's the kind of thing we want. So what I would do then is on the left one, or the right one, depending on which one you want to do, I'm going to go right up to the top, and that marks about a third. It doesn't have to be that exact at all. So I've just roughly gone around that. That's probably not a very good third, but in my head that looks fine. So I'm going to just do a little dot at the top, and then the last off down there. And this one is sitting in front of the last one that we've done. So we're going to go completely over the top of that last bit of bamboo that we've added in. So I'm going to go over it quite a few times to make sure you can really see that that's crossing over in front. So I've got plenty of paint on the brush. And I'm just going over it a couple of times. And because we want this to be nice and crisp, remember we're going to go down with our vertical brush. So long bristles at the top and drag it down. So I realised I didn't actually say what to do if you haven't got a cropped brush. You might be sitting there thinking, what do I do? So if you don't have a cropped brush, if your brush has just got a straight edge where all the bristles are the same length, all you need to do is literally hold it lengthways. So it doesn't matter which way around you hold it because they're all the same. I would just do it a bit slower. That's all if you've not got that angle on the brush. And that will be absolutely fine. So at this point, I would take a big step back from your gorgeous paintings because it always really helps. I always take a step back from my painting every couple of minutes, actually. I don't spend very long, very close to it. Apart from when I'm sitting here when I'm teaching, because I have to sit quite close to it. But when I'm normally painting, I'm always taking a big step back every couple of minutes. Because it's much easier to see the whole painting than it is when you're really close to it. So if you haven't done so yet, take a big step back, take a little photo, make sure you're pleased with it. And we've got one more thicker, darker one to add. So I've pretty much run out of my paint, which is really handy. So if you need to make up any more of that paint, then I would do that now. Don't need much of it actually for this last couple of bits. And yeah, I decided to put my this one exactly where I want my darker one. So I'm going to move it slightly over to the right, so it's kind of going in this gap. Yes, I think that's going to be a good idea. So hopefully you've planned yours a little bit better than mine. So yeah, we're going to do the same thing as before. So we're going to do a marker at the top and a marker at the bottom. So let's just go a little bit over to the right of that light one. And I'm going to go just away from the corner, so I'm not quite going all the way to the corner on the right hand side. And then let's join up together, so I'm going to do a big swooping brush stroke from the top to the bottom, and then going over it a couple of times to make it a bit thicker. And then you can go in with your vertical brush and get those edges nice and slick and crisp. Let's turn it the other way. Make sure you've still got a bit of water with your paint as well, because that does really help. You don't need as much water as we did for the background, but a little bit of water is definitely going to help to make the paints nice and fluid, which makes your paint much softer as well. So take a step back. I know I've just said it, but take a step back, take a photo, because that is all the bamboo that we need to do. If you're still thinking there's lots and lots of gaps, I wouldn't worry too much at this step, because we've got lots of leaves to add in, and they're really good to just sort of fill in the spaces. So I've got quite a lot of space in the middle where I'm going to add loads of leaves, and it's really going to transform in the next little step. So we'll do all the leaves, then we'll just add in the grass at the bottom. So it's nice and easy, that bit. And then we're going to do the panda. Yay. So I hope you're all good with those bamboo shoots. If you're struggling with the brush stroke, or if you're struggling with the colour, let me know. I'm here to help. If you need to send a photo, if you feel like something's going completely wrong, or if you're just really, really happy with it, then just send a photo through to Brush Party's Facebook Messenger, and I'll be able to see those live. Because I always like looking in to see what you're up to. It's really hard not knowing what you're painting. Obviously, I know kind of what you're painting, but I can't see them. So if you can't wait till the end, send them in now, because I'd like to see where you're up to. So we're going to rinse off our big brush, and we can either carry on with it, or you can move on with your smaller brush. So I will show you with all of the brushes, just so that I've covered all grounds, depending on what sort of brush you have at home, because the brush strokes are pretty similar. So we just need to carry on with the same colour that we've just been using for our dark bamboos. So when I said we didn't really need a lot of it, we definitely need a bit more. So I'm just going to mix up a bit more of that. So I'm using yellow, blue, or green, because that's obviously fine. And then a little bit of black. And I've run out of yellow, so let's just top up with a bit of paint. So if you want to have a little break, then go have a drink, pause the video, have a breather, and just come back whenever you're ready. So yellow, blue, and black. And I'm going to add a bit more water to this. So I'm going to make it a bit more like the background, where we had quite a few brush loads of water in the paint. So I'm going from the water into the paint. You really want to mix it around now, because if it's not quite mixed together, if the water's slightly separate from the paint, you'll probably get a drip. And drips are really hard to cover up on a painting. So definitely worth just spending a couple of minutes just whooshing the brush around, making sure that it's completely filled in and mixed up together. And the way I find the easiest to do leaves is to just start with the middle line, and then you can add in the side lines. So let's start with this one. That's a nice big one to start with. So what I'm going to do is start from the bamboo, and if you've got a cropped brush, whether it's a big one or a smaller cropped brush, then you always want to lead with your short bristles. So I would have your long bristles pointing into your bamboo, and then we're going to lift away, creating that middle line for the leaf. It's quite a big leaf I've just added in there. And then what we can do is do another line going out to the side and joining in at the top. So you can kind of see that leaf shape starting to emerge. But what makes it look really nice is if they're slightly different on both sides. So what you could do is go a bit higher up and then do a little dash going out to the side and then curling in, because then it looks like the leaf is slightly twisted, and that's what will make your painting look super, super amazing if they're all a little bit different. So that's a nice basic leaf shape. You could make it even fancier. There's no limit to the fanciness of leaves that can go on this painting. So you could do another one. I'm going to do the same start. So I'm starting with the long bristles pointing into the bamboo, but rather than doing a straight line going up, I'm going to add a wiggly line going up that way. So I've kind of done like a little backwards S sort of shape. And then you can fill it in. So you can do a line going out to the side and going around. As long as it ends with a point at the top and at the bottom, that's all that matters. Whatever shape it is, whatever size, that's absolutely fine. So you could just fill that bit in. You don't have to do 3 lines for every single one. So that's another sort of leaf that you can do. But you can just do lots of normal ones. That's absolutely fine as well. So these can go all over the place. The only place I probably wouldn't add loads is right in the middle, somewhere around here, because we have got a panda going there. And we don't want to end up, oh, I've got yellow paint in my hair. I can feel it. I'll just put my hand through it. It might be worth putting your hair up if you've got longer hair, because the paint seems to get in it every time. I don't know why I don't put my hair up. But it does brush out, and it does wash out as well. Just a word of warning. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, we have got a panda going right in the middle here. So if you've got lots of leaves going on, they might end up showing through your panda, and that's not what we want. So try and put them kind of anywhere but here. So in some places, if you have a look at this one, there's actually a stem that joins lots of leaves all together. So the way to get this bit is to start with the same line that we've added in for like the middle of a leaf, but we can just take it a little bit further. So I'm going to do one going up here. So I'm adding in this kind of line. That's a stem. And if you think of that maybe as like another bamboo, you can do lots of little leaves coming off. So you can do your middle line of your leaf there, add in one side, add the other side, and fill it in. Or maybe go the other way, so you've got them all going different directions. If you can find an easier way to do leaves, and you've found a much better way than what I've just shown you, then absolutely do whatever you think is the easiest way. Because everyone's different. Everyone prefers different techniques, which means they prefer different ways of doing things. So I will just finish off this little shoot, and then I'm going to switch to the pointy brush. So that's the way to use a cropped brush. So you might want to use your big brush, or you can use your smaller version. They're both the same brush, essentially. They're just different sizes. So that's using those 2 brushes. If you would like to use a pointy one, so a round brush like this one, they're also really good. You might just want to pick up a bit more paint on your brush, because it's not going to cover as much as the bigger brushes. Just mix in a bit more paint. Still got that water mixed in. Remember, you don't want it to go too sticky. And it's the same process. That means you do exactly the same steps. So you start with the middle line for your leaf, and then you do a line either side. So pointy brush, hold it like a pencil or a pen, and add in your middle line. So this one is a really good brush to use if you're a bit unsure about the other brushes, because the other brushes are sometimes a little bit confusing to use, and that's totally fine. I get confused sometimes with that brush because it's a little bit of a pain to use. But the number 6 pointy one is a really good one, because you don't have to think about which way around you're holding it because it's rounded, so it's all good. You might want to change the colour slightly in some of those leaves. So if you want to make some leaves look a little bit brighter, you can add a bit more yellow into it, or maybe even some white. And I'm going to just do a couple that are going to come in from the outside of the canvas. So the leaf kind of gets cut in half. So you can only see, so it looks like it's kind of going off the side. So you can only see half of the leaf. You could actually carry it on around the edges. So I've just given you loads and loads of ideas to run away with. So have a little play around with those leaves and see what colours you can make, what shapes you can make. There's so many different ways you can do these leaves. And I think I'm going to do a couple more on this one. That's my middle line. I've got a bit either side, and then fill it in. I think it always looks quite nice if you've got 2 or 3 coming out from one point. I'm going to do another little one just coming out from that same spot. So they're kind of in like groups, which always looks really, really lovely. I need a few more at the top, don't I? There's quite a few gaps. Do one there, I think. So like I said before, now's a really good time to kind of fill in any spaces that look really, really empty. And just whack a load of leaves in there. And then you'll have a nice busy background. And your panda will have lots and lots of bamboo to eat. And that's good. It needs to eat lots of food. So this is where you need to keep taking a step back because you don't want to end up doing loads on one side and then not enough on the other. Make one here as well. So they're kind of just all over the place. There's not really any particularly set sort of place for these to go. So like I said before, everyone's is going to be a little bit different, which is absolutely fine. So you could do like really, really blue leaves as well. That would look good, just to mix it up a little bit. I'm actually going to need to fill in some more gaps. I feel like I've only got those ones in there. There's a lot of thinking involved in this painting. A lot of planning. So it's fine. If you feel like you have added loads and loads and loads of leaves already, then I would just stop. You don't want to go too crazy and add loads and loads and loads in if you don't want to have loads and loads in. If you're enjoying doing your leaves, then yeah, continue and add loads. Well, I think I'm probably going to stop in a second, so I think there's quite a few in there. So a little one in here. I think I'm going to stop actually. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. So once you've done all of those leaves, I'm going to say it again, take a step back, take a big artistic look at your painting, and it might be worth just lightly wafting or getting the hairdryer on at this point because we've got 2 more steps before we do our panda. So we want to make sure that that green has completely dried before we add our panda's white head on it, because otherwise it's definitely going to go green. And you can have a green panda, but it might not stand out against your background if you're doing a green background as well. So just bear that in mind. Is anyone actually going to do a different colour panda? Because I'd love to know. I mean, there are red pandas. You could do a little red panda. That's actually a thing. They are an animal. I think a purple one would look cute. Like I think keep the white bits white maybe. But actually no, you could do black and purple. White and purple. I don't know. Any colour you want. If I was going to do a different colour, I think I would choose purple. But I'm intrigued. You don't have to do a different colour, obviously. You can stick with just black and white because a lot of pandas are black and white. Okay, so that's almost dry actually. If you've got quite a lot of paint still that's really, really wet, then use your hairdryer. Like I said before, they are very, very handy. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our big brush and we're going to add in the grass at the bottom, which is really super easy. It's just that he's got something to sit on. Otherwise, it kind of looks like he's floating in the bamboo. So we need to ground it slightly. So I'm just going to go on to the next step, but if you need to pause it, don't forget, just hit the pause button and you'll be absolutely fine. And I'm going to use my big brush again. So go back to your biggest brush that we used for the background. And I'm just going to use the same green that we've just been using. So it can be your light green or it can be your dark green. Whatever green you were using last is going to be perfect for this bit. I'm going to pick up a bit more of it. So I'm just mixing up a bit more paint. And for this bit, we're going to start with our brush flatways. So horizontal. All the bristles are flat in a line this way. So what we're going to do is start from the bottom in the middle, and we're going to do tiny little flicks that are going upwards, like this. So if you do it nice and quick, where you're just pulling the brush back off the canvas really quickly, you get a nice grassy effect. And because the panda's sitting on it, we need to make it look like the grass has kind of been flattened a little bit. So the middle can be going straight up because he's pretty much going to cover that middle bit anyway. But when you get to the sides, it's going to be really nice if they slightly lean out to the edges. And they can start getting a little bit longer as well. So they're going all the way in front of the bamboo over to the sides. And they will stick out behind his paws, behind his feet. So when you're going to the right, they need to be sort of leaning over to the right. And then when you're going to the left, they need to be leaning over to the left. I think mine might be a little bit dark, but I think that's fine. So what you can do in a couple of places, you can turn your brush so you've got it lengthways, so you've got it vertically. And that means you can get slightly pointier bits of grass in, which just helps to break up the big patch of grass that we've just added. So you can add some taller bits that just sort of stick out above the rest. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of white and yellow into that green because I think mine might be a little bit dark. So if you think you've gone really, really dark, like me, then what you can do is add in some highlights. So you're just adding like 2 tones to your grass, which is also quite nice. So you can go in with a slightly lighter green and then just do a couple of brush strokes over the top. So maybe actually if you've done just the light green already, it might be nice to use a dark green as well. So you've got 2 tones as well. So you've got like darker ones and light ones. And it just makes it look a little bit more realistic, kind of. So we'll just leave it like that for now. I know we can kind of see that bamboo, but we can add another layer when it's dry. So that is our lovely grass sorted at the bottom. So now what's left to do for the background, this is the last step before we do our panda, is just to add in these white lines. And this is what makes it look more like bamboo. So for this bit, I would rinse off your big brushes so you've got no more paint on that brush. And it's probably a good idea to dry it as well. So we're not going to use this big brush again. We are going to use it again, but I would just dry it off anyway because we've used loads of green on it. So rinse it off, dry it on your tissue and put it somewhere safe because we are going to use it in a second. We're going to use it for the panda. So then the next brush that we're going to use, the white for the white lines is actually the pointy brush, because this one is really good at getting small little flicky lines. So we're not going to think about these lines too much. But the main gist of them is kind of like little smiley faces. So if you have a look on this one, it's really clear how the line, there we go, how the line goes down and then back up again on that one bit of bamboo. So you want to get a little bit of water on this brush. Oh, my brush is looking a little bit worn. Okay, a bit nicer. So yeah, your small round brush, add a little bit of water to it, and then pick up a little bit of white. So when you're adding white to your brush, I would probably pop it in and then roll it round on its side so that you're getting a nice even layer of paint on all sides of the brush. So it's completely covered from the end to the base of the bristles. And that's just going to make it much easier to get your brush strokes nice and crisp and lovely. So we'll start on the ones that are going straight up. So if you have a look on my right hand side one, this very first one in the background, that one's going straight up. So these ones are going to just be them smiley faces. So I'm going to start from one side of the bamboo. I'm going to drag it down and back up again. Get a little smiley face in there. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to go up a little bit higher. And I'm going to add another one, exactly the same as before. So when you've added in your second one, you can kind of see what gap you need to leave for the next one. So whatever gap you've left, I quite like to use my hands for measuring. So I'm going to just do that. And then have a little idea of what that finger's just left. And add another one. Just be careful though, because we've added our leaves in, we don't really want to be putting these smiley face lines over the top of our leaves, because the leaves are kind of in front. So when you get to a leaf, I'd probably just stop. So for example, in here, the leaf has kind of gone right over the top of where I need this white line to go. So I've got a little bit that's showing up in there. So I'm just going to go up to the leaf and stop. And then just keep going. So another little one down here. So that is for the ones that are going straight upwards. The only difference for the ones that are leaning over a little bit is to kind of add in more of like, it's more of a diagonal line rather than a perfect smiley face. So if we start with just a diagonal line going down the middle of the bamboo like this, the best way to finish it off is to add a little curve that goes down the side and a little curve that goes upwards. So it ends up being a little bit more like this sort of shape. So going diagonal and then a little dash going down. Don't worry if it doesn't come out exactly like that, because as you can see, they come out a little bit different every time you do it. So as long as it's got that diagonal line on it, that's fine, because it just shows that it's leaning over a little bit. And if you can get the little wiggly line in, kind of like a backwards S shape going downwards, then that will just make it look even lovelier. But it's not essential. It's all good. So in a couple of places, well, actually, let's just carry on with the bamboo bits. Let's finish that bit off before I get ahead of myself. So on the one on the left-hand side, what you can do is, if you think of a tick, but without the sharp point at the bottom, you can add in a rounded tick. I'm just going to see it's gone down in the middle and then up. So it's like the smiley face, but a little bit lopsided. That looks quite nice on the bigger ones as well. I don't want to overdo it. I definitely overdid that one. Ooh, just rub that out. I'm going to just do a couple on the ones that are in the background. So if you can still see some of those ones right in the distance, these little ones, it might be quite nice just to add a couple of little white lines so that they look like bamboo. So hopefully when you take a step back, it's looking really detailed now and hopefully really, really lovely. So the last bit with the white, what looks quite nice, is in a couple of bits. Where you've got the middle line for your leaf, so the first line that we added in for our leaves, if you use the white and just add a little highlight, going back over your middle line for each leaf, that looks really, really lovely too. I know I just said every leaf, but you don't have to do every single one. I'm just going to choose a couple that look a little bit lost. So like this one, it kind of looks a bit see-through. So I'm going to use the white to really brighten it up a little bit. Can you see just adding that little white line has just made it really stand out so it doesn't get lost into the background. So a little dash going up through some of those leaves, and then we're on to our panda. That's all the hard, actually that's all the background bits now. I was going to say all the hard bits. But we've got the panda next. The panda's not hard, so don't get worried about this bit. Just take your time with it. We're actually just going to start off with big blocks of colour just to get the shape in, and they're really simple shapes. So the first shape we're actually going to do, we don't have to do it right now, I'm just going to explain it first. The first shape we're going to do is the body. So if you just ignore this white patch in the middle, the actual shape of it is kind of like an apple. So it's got this big wide bit at the top, round bits on the side, and then the little bumpy bit at the bottom. So we're just going to paint an apple. So start off with a circle, and a little bump at the top, or a little dip at the top, and then two little bumps at the bottom. So you end up with that W sort of shape. Then we've got the paws to add on, so those little feet. And then we're going to add in the face. So the face is just a circle. So we'll start with the middle bit, so this bit here, more of an oval. And then we've got two little bits to add on, like a C shape and then a backwards C shape for his lovely big cheeks. And that's the main shape of the panda. So it's really simple. Don't overthink it too much and just take your time with it. So let's make sure that our background is completely dry before we do our next step. So it might be worth just wafting a couple more times, making sure there's no green that's wet. And we're going to start with black and our big brush. So you don't have to use the big brush if you feel like that's a little bit scary, because this is the main bit of the painting, so you want to make sure you're pleased and comfortable with what you're using. You can use a smaller cropped one, so you can use one like this. I'm going to stick with my big one, so it's easy for you guys to see it on the camera, but either of these two are going to be perfect for this bit. So it can be the flat brush or it can be the cropped one. You can use your round brush, but it might take you a little bit longer, which is fine. So yeah, I'm going to use my big brush. And we're going to start by dipping it in the water again. So just a little bit of water and some black paint. So we're going to go straight into the black. Oh, got loads of white in my hand. So glad I have an apron. If I didn't have an apron, every single item of clothing would just be covered in paint. So if you are finding that the paint is kind of gone a little bit everywhere, then you just need a wet wipe. Wet wipes are amazing for clearing up acrylic paint, surprisingly. They just get it off everything, apart from like sofas and things and clothes. So just be aware. I know we're pretty far into the painting now, it's probably a bit too late to go back, but just in case, if you need that advice, wet wipes always really, really handy. So I've just made my black a little bit more watery, like we did at the very beginning with the first bit of green that we put on, because we've got quite a lot of layers to put on and we don't want it to be too thick with paint, so that we can add that white patch on his tummy. So I've added the water in, I've spread it out so it's not too thick, and we're going to start with a little dot right in the middle of where we want our panda's tummy to be. So I'm going to go just above the grass and halfway across. I'm just going to start with a circle, just a very rough blob in the middle. And once we've got that blob in there, we can breathe. We can definitely relax a little bit. That's the first bit done. So I'm going to make this circle bigger and bigger and bigger until it's quite big, because it's quite deceiving. The panda's actually really, really big, because it's the main bit of the painting. You want to make sure it's going to fill quite a lot of the canvas. So I'm going to bring this quite high up, probably to about, I think it's a bit higher than a third. So can you remember at the beginning when we did our bamboo shoots, we did a third, didn't we? So we did it going lengthways, but this time we're going to do a third going the other way. So if you use your hands again for your measurements, think of it in 3 even sections. We're going to go just a little bit higher than a third with that black. So I'm going to go somewhere around there, I think. And I'm just going to make it into a circle first. So it's going to go over the top of the grass a little bit at the bottom. And try and make it a nice even circle. I'm not very good at doing circles, if you can tell. It really helps if you keep your head nice and straight. I think I can maybe go a little bit bigger, actually. I think it needs to be a little bit chunkier. Oh. There we go. It's a little bit bigger. So we then need to make it into the apple shape that I was talking about earlier. So at the top, we're going to add, it's kind of like an M shape. Now don't overthink that, because it's not a perfect M. What I would say to do is start from the middle. So you know when like a capital M where it drops, well, any M, it drops down in the middle. So that's where his chin's going to go. It's a very, very long, stretched out M shape. And then we can add in the curvy bits on the side where his shoulders are going to go. If I bring that a bit closer, does that make sense? Can you see that M shape, or am I just being really, really silly? To me, that looks like an M, I think. Very, very squished down. M. We need to make sure he's nice and even on both sides. So if you make one side bigger, then you might need to go in and make the other side a bit bigger. Still think he might be a little bit skinny, you know. I'm going to make him a little bit wider, so I'm just rounding off his shoulders a bit more. There we go. And at the bottom, we need to add in where his paws are going to go. So this is like a W shape. Again, quite far-fetched here. It's like a very, very squished, pulled out W. So I'm going to go down the side of the panda, and that's like the side of the W. And I'm going to lift it up in the middle. So it just goes up in the middle and then down again on the other side. So it looks like we have an apple on our painting. And if you have something that looks a little bit apple-like, then that's perfect. If it looks like a pear, then it's probably not quite right. We're going for the apple fruit. But we'll just see what happens. So take a step back and take a photo, because taking a photo really helps you to see if it's all equal and all symmetrical. It's much, much easier to tell. And it's super tricky doing it this way around. So I'm sorry I keep putting my head in front of the camera. There we go. I think that's probably about as even as I'm going to get it. So just go over the top of your apple shape with a dry brush, just to take off a little bit of that wet paint, so it's not going to dry uneven. We want it to be nice and thin with paint all the way across. I've got something a little bit like this. Okay. The next thing is his paws, or his feet. These little things. So the shape of them is that they're wider at the top and then smaller at the bottom. So we're just going to start with 2 lines. kind of like how we did the leaves, so we did the middle line first and we added a line either side. That's what we're going to do for the feet. So just off to the sides of our panda's body, I'm going to do a little dash. It's going to come up to about halfway up. So he's got quite big feet. And they're going to go slightly outwards. And then same thing on the other side. So try and make sure they're the same sort of size. So he's not got one foot that's massive. One that's small. So that's the middle line, our paws, feet. And then to get the shape, you just want to use the brush width way, so you're getting nice thick brush strokes along the top. And if you think of it like a T shape, we're just giving it a nice rounded top of the T, like this, on the side. Kind of looks like two little mushrooms. I'm going to make these join up into the body, so I'm going to just carry on so that they join up on the sides there. We're all good. I hope we're all okay. The last little bit for the feet is just to add in, so from the outer side of the foot, I'm just going to add another line going down, and it's just going to tuck in like this. So it's just adding in, kind of like, what does that look like to me? I don't know what that looks like. Not sure. But in the end, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 little bumps along the bottom. So we've got one for his foot, two for his feet and 2 for his hands. There we go. So that hopefully now will look something like a foot. And that will be really, really good if it does. And then just filling in. So when you're filling it in, you want to use the flat part of the brush. So you're getting nice, big, thick brush strokes. There we go. Okay, we can kind of see where we're going with this. It's starting to look a little bit more panda-like, which is so exciting. And we've still got plenty of time, which is good. So let's give that a bit of time to dry. We definitely need to waft it a little bit, and we need to clean off our brush as much as possible because we're going to add white next. And if it's a little bit wet at the top, or if we've got a bit of black on the brush, it's just going to go grey straight away. So let's just do some crazy wafting. I'm going to hold it this end to get the most out of the wafts, and we're just going to go crazy. Get it nice and dry, and we're going to add in his head next because Panda definitely needs a head. So yeah, we'll do the head, then we're going to do the ears, and then we'll add all the fluff so it looks nice and furry, like all these shoulder bits and his fluffy feet. And then we'll do all the details. So we're very, very nearly there. So if you need to add, if you need to get the hair dryer, if your paint is quite thick on your panda, especially at the top, definitely worth getting the hair dryer on it. If you want to keep up with painting, that's probably the easiest way to stay live. But if you're taking your time with it, there's no rush. You don't have to waft, you don't have to hair dry it. Just let it dry and then continue whenever you're ready. Yeah, it's nearly there. Just a couple more wafty bits. So I hope everyone's okay so far. I'm hoping that it's looking something. I've got no idea what that was. Something just fell, and I don't know what it was. So yeah, hopefully it's looking a little bit like an apple with kind of looks like ears maybe on an apple. Okay, so this is where we're going to use our clean white. So at the beginning, hopefully we put out 2 blobs of white on our palettes. If you didn't do that, that's fine. Just put another bit of clean white out now, so it's not got any green in it. And we're just going to use a little bit of neat white. If the water's a little bit murky, that's fine. You might want to rinse it, but you don't have to. My water's like a really murky green colour, which makes it look like the white is going to come out really dark and horrible. But when it goes on the canvas, it looks white anyway, so it's all good. So we're going to start with an oval shape on top of our apple. So this bit at the top of the apple is going to be where the chin is. So you don't want too much paint on the brush. For this bit, it's probably better to do 2 thin layers of white paint than it is to just do like one big thick layer, because it's probably going to take quite a long time to dry. So yeah, thin layer of paint, so you might still see the background showing through, but that's fine. We're going to add another layer in a second. So I'm going to go definitely above halfway with the top of the head, because I want quite a big head on my panda. And I'm making it a nice big oval shape. Well, I've got a little bit of grey in there, but that's fine. So it's nice and rounded at the top. And it can very slightly overlap the top of the apple. So it looks like he's got a nice smiley chin going on. So with any painting that involves doing like faces, I always think they have like their own characters that sort of come through. So like every single person that's painting today is going to have a slightly different panda. So I think this one looks like he's laughing. I think the original one looks like he's just smiling. This one looks like he's chuckling at something. And they definitely need a name. So when you have finished your painting, I know we're not quite there yet, but when it gets to the end point, hopefully you'll be able to come up with a name that perfectly goes well with what sort of personality your panda has. And if you do send your pictures in, I would love to know what names you've chosen. I haven't decided on one yet because I want to see what it looks like at the end. I feel like this one looks like, I don't know, what does it look like? Not sure. I'm gonna think of something. Not very good with names. So we've got an oval shape on there at the second, and then we need to add in his cheeks, so it looks like he's a very smiley panda. So what we need to do is we're going to add in 2 circles, but the middle of the circle is going to be right on the edge of the oval. So if you have a look nice and carefully, I'm just adding in this sort of circle shape just in there. Obviously that looks a little bit strange because we've not blended it in or anything, but if we just start with 2 circles in line with each other, just using that flat part of the brush, just swivel it round. Let's make sure it's a bit more even. And then when we've got those 2 circles in there, we need to blend it all in so it doesn't look like he's got big angular parts to his face. So then we just need to smooth it all out. So I'm going to go at the top, and I'm going to just add a nice line that runs down the sides and joins it all together. So it does need to look a bit fluffy, so it's quite nice to be a little bit messier with your brush. So if you just slightly flick it outwards, you can add a nice little fluffy edge to it. And blend it into his chin. I think my head might be a little bit flat at the top. There we go. I'm adding a little bit of fluff either side. I think I've definitely got a massive head for my panda. Oh, actually, no, it's not that big. So when you take a step back, you can really notice I need a bigger chin. I've got a tiny little chin and massive cheeks. So just keep going until you are happy with your panda's head size. So Keep taking a step back. When you think you're finished, step back and just keep adding to it if you need to. Okay, so now he's got a nice fluffy chin. I think he's looking quite adorable at the second. There we go, it's a bit better. There's always room to make him bigger if we need to. I think for now, that'll probably do. Okay. So we need to add a bit more white. So hopefully by now, the middle bit of his tummy has dried. And I'm going to carry on with my big brush. And this bit, I'm going to start with a straight line. That's going to go just a little bit underneath his chin. So I'll just show you on this one first. We're going to do a line that's going from this bit, so the white chest, all the way down, almost to the bottom, so that we get that split between his hands. So they're kind of like that. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap underneath his chin, right in the middle of his tummy, and I'm going to go straight down, making sure our bristles are all in a line going upwards. And I'm going to just stop just before the bottom in there. And then we need to add in the top of his paws. Oh, just smudge that one. So if we add in a quarter circle, so what I mean by that is we start at the bottom of our line and we're just going to add in this bit in here. So it's kind of like a V shape. That's probably easier. So if you look at this bit, that's one side of the V going out to the side, and then the other part of the V is going that way. So it's like a curvy V shape. And hopefully you can kind of see those paws starting to emerge. And we can add the rest of his chest in, which is like this little bit in here. So it's following the same shape as his chest, and then going down to join the ends of the V shape. So when we fill it in, he's got a nice white tummy. There we go. And we can also make that a little bit fluffy as well. So you can use the tip of the brush along the top and just do lots of little dashes, going a little bit above the line to make it look nice and fluffy. Maybe a little bit going out to the sides. And maybe a little bit on the paws as well. And now it's really starting to look like a panda, and that's so exciting. I can't wait to see these. I love all the animal ones that we do. They always look so amazing. And they're so cute. They're so fun to do and so cute. So I hope that you have been taking pictures, because I'd like to see your progress pictures as well. Okay. So the last couple of bits that we need to do with the big brush is, actually that's it with the big brush. So once you've done that bit, the chest, the head might have had a bit more time to dry, which means that you can definitely do another layer of white paint, just to make sure it's definitely going to cover and cover all the background. But you want to make sure it's definitely dry. So you might want to just put the hairdryer on it at the second, just to give it a bit more time to dry. And I'm just going to whack it on there using the flat edge of the brush. Still a little bit see-through, but that's fine. It's definitely brighter. And then you can add another layer of white to the chest as well. So it's just getting those white bits really, really white. But if the white is still wet, like the layer underneath, if that's still wet, it's probably going to just come off when you add the next layer. So you definitely want to make sure it's dry before you do your second coat, because you'll end up being there for hours and hours and hours just painting that same bit over and over again, and it won't get any brighter. So the last couple of bits, rinse off your big brush. We're going to pop that one to one side, and we can use either the small cropped brush or the pointy number 6 brush. So I'm going to use the pointy number 6 brush just because I think we've been using the cropped brush, the big cropped brush, quite a lot. So hopefully if you've got a small cropped brush and you want to use that one, hopefully you'll be okay using it. But if you've got any questions, just let me know if you are going to use this one. I'm just going to use the number 6 round one. And I'm going to continue with the white. So I'm going to pick a little bit more paint up with white. And we need to add in the paws. So these bits in here. So all we need to do is have the tip of the brush pointing upwards. And I'm going to add 3 dashes like this, going downwards on his foot. So you can make them a little bit bigger if you want to, but I'm just going to do 3 little lines. They're kind of like oval shapes. You can make them as big or as small as you like. So you're using more of the side of the brush rather than the edge of the bristles. So rather than the end of the brush, you're using the side. If you've got the cropped brush, you can just use the flat part of the brush and just drag it down, and that will be a really good way to get that brush stroke. And we can't forget about the other foot as well. We need to add in 3 bits. I'm just doing a little brush stroke going down, another one. Probably need to make sure they're the same sort of size though. Those ones are a little bit small. So I hope that you're all still okay and you're enjoying yourselves. Again, there's no rush whatsoever. So if there's some bits that you just want to take your time with, that's fine. If you want to use the hairdryer a bit more, then just go for it. It's all good. So these bits at the bottom, like the bottom of his feet, they look like baked beans on its side. So you've got the round bit at the top and then it kind of curves in at the bottom. So think of a baked bean. I'm just going to drag it across with like a sad face that's going up in the middle. And then the same thing underneath. So it's like it kind of looks like a bean, doesn't it? Yeah. And then same thing on the other foot. And we also need to add in his claws. So pandas have really big claws. So coming out from the top of his feet, we just need to add in 3 little dashes like this, just with the tip of the brush just coming out from the top. And also on his hands. So we need some claws on his hands. So just at the bottom of his body, coming out of that W shape, I'm going to add in 2 or 3, however many claws you can fit on. Might go for 3 on that side. On his hands. There we go. Okay, Ivy and Granny and Anna, hope you're all good. You guys have gone very quiet on that live chat, and we're very, very nearly there. We're on the last couple of steps. So we can rinse off that brush, and we're just going to use a bit of black next for the last couple of bits, and then a little bit of white and pink. So we need to give them some ears. Ears are always very important for pandas. So these are like little half circles on the side of his head. So at the very top of his head, just on the sides here, I'm going to do a rounded shape like this. And you can make the ears as big or as small as you like. And I'm just going to fill it in. But because they're really fluffy, you want to just do some messy little flicks, flicking upwards like this. A big flick going outwards to give them the lovely fluffy ears. And the hardest bit, I think, about this whole painting is trying to get it symmetrical, which means try making it the same on both sides. So once you've done one ear, just take your time and try your best to get the other ear as even as you can. Let's do the other side. So start with that round shape without any fluff on it, just to get the sides. And then once you got the kind of size, add those fluffy bits in. Oh, that's definitely not that bigger, smaller. No, it's not quite big enough. Okay, so that is his ears. think I've definitely got one bigger than the other, but that's fine. Only slightly. It's very hard to tell. Okay, last couple of bits. For the face, I would probably start with the nose because it's right in the middle and it's going to make it much easier to map everything out once you've got that nose on there. So the nose needs to be right in the centre of the face. So I'm just going to turn this towards me because I can see that my face is a little bit lopsided. So I'm just starting with a little dot. And this is going to be like an oval shape. So a rounded oval shape on its side. So not upwards, going sideways. And you can make this as big or as small as you like. You can have a massive nose, you can have a teeny little nose. It's up to you. But it's like, yeah, that oval shape on its side. And then, once you've got something that looks a little bit like a nose, it then needs to go down into the top of his mouth. So this bit, if we start with the left-hand side, if you think of the letter J, it's that sort of shape. So if we start at the top, I should just do it this way. Start at the top, and it's going to go straight down. So that's the top of the J going downwards. And then it goes out to the side. Like this. And then we need to do it the other side as well. It's going down the middle. And this bit kind of needs to be even. I found that the hardest bit, getting it the same on both sides. Definitely quite tricky to do. So just take your time. Give a nice big smile. It's definitely not gone even. Let's just make sure it's nice and symmetrical. And then to join it up together, we just need a U shape. Joining it up. So I'd start from the bend in each one, and I'm going to give him a massive mouth, big smiley face. There we go, and I can see I've definitely got a very wobbly looking mouth, but that's fine. I'm gonna roll with it. Still very cute. And the eyes, we're going to start with the patch first. So they start off, these are kind of like beans as well. So we're just going to start off with a straight line going down for the middle of the patches. So I'm going to go just above the nose in this top section, and I'm going to add in 2 diagonal lines that go downwards. So we can kind of see roughly where the patch is going to go. And once we've got that middle line in there so we can see what's going on, we're then just going to make it into a bean shape. So if you want to turn your canvas on its side, then you absolutely can do, because that might really help. So I'm going to just add to that, and I'm going to do a little dash going this way. And oh, it's just started to rain. How lovely. Yeah, and then we've got that curve going the same way for the bottom part of the bean. Oh, okay, I've made mine absolutely huge. Okay. Oh, it's so cute. I'm so excited to finish this one. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. Again, they kind of need to be the same size as much as you can. And you guys might have speeded off ahead. You might be really super quick painters. And in that case, that's absolutely fine. Just keep doing whatever you're doing, and it'll be lovely. But do just have breaks as and when you need to. So that's most of the detail done now. Let's let that bit dry for a second, and I'm just going to mix up a nice pink colour. So I'm going to mix red and white together. A little bit of white, a little bit of red, mix it round. And we're just going to paint over his paws. So where we've got the white patches on his paws, just going to add a tiny bit of pink to those bits. And I'm also going to add a little bit of pink inside his mouth as well. So we've got a nice little pink tongue sticking out just in here. But you definitely need to make sure that black has dried enough. And we're on the very, very last steps now, so it's so close. Oh, that little tiny patch was not dry. So now my panda's got a slightly grey tongue. That's okay. Okay, last couple of bits. We need to add in the circles for his eyes. So I'm just going to take off a little bit of the excess paint that's on there. So you can waft it, you can dry it with a hairdryer, whatever you need to do to get it nice and dry. I am going to use quite a lot of paint for this bit because I want it to be quite a nice bold bit. And you can use your fingertip for this bit, or you can use your brush. I think it's much, much easier using your fingertip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in the white paint. This might get a little bit messy. So I've got a big blob of white paint just on my fingertip here. And I'm going to just blob it on where I want the eyes to go. So the eyes are going to be towards the top of that bean shape. And I'm just going to press it and lift off. So just be careful. If your black is still a little bit wet, you don't want to press too hard because the black will just show through. I've got one there. And again, these do need to be the same size. So try your best to line them up as close as you can to being symmetrical, and then just blob your finger on. And if you need to neaten it up, then you can go in with your brush. Okay, look a little bit freaky until we have the black in. There you go. I ended up doing a tiny little smudge on that side. So just go around with your brush and neaten up that circle if you need to. And we've got two more bits using our fingertips. So I'm going to dip it in the black paint. And this time I'm going to just dot it on the white bit again, but I'm not going to press very hard and I'm not going to make it as big. So I'm going right in the center of the eye and I'm just going to press and lift off. And then same thing on the other one. Nope, that's not very symmetrical. So when you start fiddling with it, that's when it starts to go a little bit smudgy. So once you've dotted it on there, I wouldn't go into it too much to try and even it out because it's probably fine. Last two bits then is to add in a little last white dot on the eyes inside the black bits in there just to give it a little bit of life, and then a little dash on his nose, make it nice and shiny. You can add more white in his ears, you can add more white on his fur, you can add like another layer of white onto his body and his cheeks or whatever. But that is everything with this painting. So you've done all the steps to make our lovely panda. And I can just see that my cheeks were so big on one side and not big on the other. So that's everything that you need to know for this painting. I really hope that you have enjoyed yourselves. I think my head's a lot bigger on this one than it was on this one. But yeah, everyone's is going to look slightly different, which is very exciting. So like I said, the most important part is to name your panda and also sign it. So with any painting or drawing or anything that you do, you have to sign it. That's the rules. And it means that when it goes up on the wall, everybody who sees it will know exactly that you painted it. And that's really exciting. So you can put your name at the bottom, you can put your panda's name at the bottom, you can sign it on the back. You can even write a little story on the back. That's always quite nice. You've got like another blank canvas on the back that you can just go wild with. So yeah, have fun with that. And take a photo, take a step back, and I really, really hope that you are happy with your pandas. Oh my goodness. If you want to add another panda in somewhere, then go for it. You could do another canvas. You've got all the steps there. You can re-watch the video. You can watch certain bits back. And yeah, send us your paintings. So there's loads of ways you can send photos, and you can tag us on Facebook. You can email them to us at info@brushparty.co.uk. And we've got loads of paintings coming up this week. We've got lots and lots of family events. Tomorrow we're painting a monkey, which is a quite similar style. I think the monkey's a little bit easier. So if you are wanting to paint a monkey, it's called Cheeky Monkey, and it's tomorrow. I'm not sure what the time is, but it's on our website. And we've got quite a few more family ones as well coming up this week. So have a little look and hopefully see you there. But if not, have a lovely rest of your half term. And thank you so much again. It was lovely painting with you guys. Bye.